Kicking off the list at number 10, WASP 96b. Okay, we have to talk about some James Webb goodness in this list, of course. NASA just released a handful of photos from its $10 billion project. This telescope launched last Christmas and the gifts have finally arrived. And I'm terrified. We are so small in the universe. What is going on? In the cluster of photos, we see a giant exoplanet called WASP 96. And no, it is not full of wasps. I mean, I hope not, who's to say? But it could hold secrets behind human existence. WASP 96 is a gas planet half the size of Jupiter, 1,150 years away from us. It orbits its star every 3 to 5 days, so I hope you love New Year's parties because you're gonna have a lot of them. Thanks to our boy James Webb up there in space, we can now see that there's lots of water surrounding this planet. Clouds and haze, says NASA. That's good. I'm excited for more water to be found in the universe, but I'm also nervous because, more water means more fish and, also up aliens. Number 9, KEPLER 1649c. Yeah, it's not all about James Webb today, okay? NASA's Kepler Space Telescope also discovered this one a while back, but while NASA was revisiting old observations in 2018 before, retiring said telescope, they noticed previous computer algorithms misidentified it, and upon second glance, it's indeed an exoplanet. Yep, 300 light years away from Earth, it's a tad larger than our planet, and it receives a good amount of starlight. It receives about 75% of what our own sun gives off. Thing is, Kepler 1649c orbits a red dwarf, meaning solar flare-ups could prevent further life from evolving, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, I don't know. No aliens, please, thanks. Number 8, Ross 128b. I love the names for all these exoplanets. It's just like Jake 21a. You're like, okay, potentially habitable. So much monster energy. Back in 2017, this exoplanet was discovered by Xavier Bonfils at the Institute of Planetology and Astrophysics of Grenoble. Now this one is 11 light years away from us. It's pretty close. And it only takes 10 days to complete a trip around its M-type star. The star is redder, cooler, and dimmer, so perhaps this planet could one day host life. Or maybe it one day already did. Who's to say? Either way. Don't want it. Don't want any part of these aliens. Number 7, Ice Moon. We're looking billions of years into the past, we're searching cosmic clouds light years away, but what about our own galaxy? What about our own solar system? What about our own moon? Could there one day be life on our moon? Back in 2018, NASA confirmed that there is surface ice on the moon's north and south pole. This was huge. NASA mineralogy mapper instruments picked up ice traces near the darkest and coldest craters of the rock. There are 3 specific signatures that prove that there is 100% water ice on the surface of moon. Yeah, and we're talking about aliens whipping out of our oceans. Like, what's going on here? Something's afoot. Number 6, LEVELLAND Flaming Thing. Nice, that's a good title. Imagine opening the newspaper back in 1957 and on the front cover you read, "LEVELLAND Flaming Thing brings world knocking at city's door." That's alarming, that's a pretty crazy one. What does that even mean, right? Back in 1957 in Levelland, Texas, multiple eyewitness reports began to flood in about an egg-shaped object or this circular flash of light, something egg-like, jetting across Levelland skies. I just like saying Levelland, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to say it as many times as I can. I'm probably saying it wrong, it's probably like Leveland, but I'm gonna keep going with Levelland. One witness recalls the object making a loud humming noise as it flew by, which is different than other accounts that we've heard so far for, UFOs. The egg shape keeps coming back in history, right? We've seen this in multiple accounts, but this is an encounter where it's been reported as loud, with a great rush of wind. And on top of that claim, the witness's car radio began to go haywire. It was like, it was like, in case you missed it the first time. The radio thing isn't too crazy. I mean, growing up, my computer speakers would always tell me if a phone call was about to come in. Felt like I was from the future. That was always odd. The Air Force also commented on it, saying that this was just a phenomenon caused by electrical storms. It was a ball of lightning, they say. A ball of lightning back in 1957. Crazy, haven't seen many of those since. Number 5, 2017 UFO. I remember this one because I was really scared, not sure what was happening with the universe. Back in 2017, after the existence of the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program became more well known, a video was then released of an encounter between an FA-18 Super Hornet and some sort of unidentified flying object. A UFO, or a UAP, sorry, we don't say UFOs anymore, now it's a UAP. There weren't a ton of details released about what exactly happened during this encounter because there weren't any details to provide, but the Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward Locking Infrared, or at Fleur, if you're out of breath like me. They were able to capture an extremely fast-moving white oval that was around 45 feet long. The oval had no wings and didn't appear to have any kind of exhaust either. They were tracking a UFO at the altitude of 25,000 feet just above the Atlantic Ocean. And then they were shocked because the craft rotated on its side and then just flew away. There was no explanation released with the footage because it truly is unbelievable and no one can figure it out yet. If you have any ideas, sound off below. All these mystery eggs floating in and out of our towns. Number 4, Europa life. One of Jupiter's moons, called Europa, has a red tinge around it, and in 2001, NASA scientists revealed that it's possible that alien microbes may be responsible for said red tinge. The surface of its moon is mostly icy, but it has been shown that it reflects infrared radiation in a bizarre way. This means that something is binding it together, but researchers haven't been able to come up with the correct combination of elements and compounds to make this data make any sense. Know what I mean? There's some bacteria on Earth that can thrive in extreme conditions, some fish that have never seen light ever and they're glowy somehow. The surface temperature might be too cold for them to survive, but the warmer interior might be where they're all located. Some geological activity on the moon could then push them closer to the surface, where they then flash frozen in place. What a horrible way to go. Number 3, Venus cloud. Back in September 2020, astrobiologists everywhere were excited but also skeptical at some new potential evidence that had been found in the upper clouds of Venus. You probably heard about this, right? Firstly, can we just take a second to really think about how cool of a job it is to be an astrobiologist? To just be like, yep, aliens, let's do it. And then they plan a mission and then take off. Anyways, phosphine is very rare, and usually it's poisonous gas here on Earth that is basically always met with the presence of living organisms, right? So we find this gas, it's bad, but always connects with life. Venus hasn't really been at the top of the list for choices for finding potential life due to its surface temperature, of course, and pressure to the, sulfuric acids in the clouds, and it's horrible and you can never live there ever. But this new evidence could prove to say something otherwise. 2 separate telescopes were able to pick up the signatures of phosphine in a cloud that had a similar temperature and pressure to Earth, and while this isn't concrete evidence of, space beings or bugs or anything like that, it'll at least be a reminder that we should be continuing to look for life or clues around life, you know what I mean? Even in the most unlikely places, like Venus clouds. Maybe it's space bugs also, who knows? That'd be gross. Space moths that live in clouds of phosphine. That would suck. Number 2. Astronaut sightings. We could sit on Earth all day and talk about the potential for said alien life, but who would know more than the people who have actually been to space, right? I mean, who am I? I'm just a guy who makes YouTube videos. Ask the people who have been out there, which are of course astronauts. Ask Astronauts. That'd be a cool website, Ask Astronauts. It probably is a website, actually. Definitely on the list of the coolest and scariest jobs in the entire world. There haven't been a ton of people who have had the, privilege of experiencing space firsthand, but there are even less of them who have claimed to see something that could potentially prove alien existence. People who have claimed these sorts of things include Edgar Mitchell, Catherine Coleman, and Dr. Brian O'Leary. The very interesting part about many of these claims is that they will also include some sort of government cover-up as well with their claim. So it's always pretty juicy. There was also Buzz Aldrin, who spoke about his Apollo 11 experience, and he detailed the crew seeing something flying alongside them, but at first they believed it was the final stage of a detached rocket. But then Mission Control confirmed that that rocket was actually 6,000 miles away from them at the time, so there was no answers on what said flying object could have been. But they noticed it, as would you in a spaceship looking out of a window. And finally, number 1, moon life. Titan is one of Saturn's many moons. Saturn has 82 moons, so if there's any aliens hiding near Saturn, we're never gonna find them. They have many places to hide. A lot of nooks and crannies to hide behind. A lot of moons to hide behind. That's a lot of moons, and around 10 years ago, NASA's Cassini spacecraft detected water under its massive shell of ice, which is really exciting. Again, like I said with our own moon, even traces of water is amazing, let alone this much. To quote a Cassini team member, the search for water is an important goal in solar system exploration, and now we've spotted another place where it is abundant. NASA has also detected low frequency radio waves on the icy moon, and it sounds pretty eerie. So we have radio waves and we have water. Sounds like aliens to me, my friends. As far as space mysteries go, anywhere that has water or signs of water, fish. Some sort of alien fish is hiding in there. Look at our own planet. Look at an octopus. An octopus changes colors while it dreams. Alien. Kicking off the list at number 10, GLIESE 581g. Kicking this list off with an exoplanet hiding in the constellation Libra. Yeah, to all my fellow Libras out there, this one's for you. Happy early birthday. It was discovered back in 2010, but GLIESE 581g, still to this day, its confirmation is hard to pinpoint. Yeah, the thing with exoplanets is that they're a little far away. They're a little hard to see out there. But somehow the fine minds over at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo calls GLIESE 581 the top candidate for alien life. You heard it here, folks. There we go. It's only sitting 20 light years away from our very own sun, and GLIESE 581g is 3 times as large as Earth. So to all my Libras, bring a friend or two. Let's party it up. We got room. If you're a fan of New Year's parties, again, this is the planet for you. Every 30 days, we're counting down to a new year. So we don't have to wait too long to party. Off to a good start. Number 9, HD 85512b. This next planet's in HD, Chris. There we go. Put on your 3D glasses. Announced in 2011 alongside 50 other planets. Okay. HD 85512b was discovered by the High Accuracy Radial Velocity Planet Searcher instrument, or to save you some breath, HARPS for short, over in Chile. Yeah, Chile's casually exploring 50 planets over in their weekend. Okay. It's wild how some of these discoveries happened so long ago, but we don't talk about them nearly enough. Again, same deal as the GLIESE 581g, this planet too is 3 times the size of Earth. It's actually 3.5 times bigger. Yeah, as far as commutes go, it'll take some time to get there. Yeah, we're still working on that part. The HD planet hides around 35 light years away from us. This one you can find in the constellation Vela, aka the Snail. Is it truly habitable? Is there water on this planet? Well, that's to be determined. Our boy James Webb's gonna take a peek real soon. Number 8. GLIESE 581e. Wait a minute, how many GLIESEs are there? Is a single GLIESE a goose? What's going on here? In typical part 2 fashion, I had to include another GLIESE. There's actually 4 of them in total. I'm not going to do all 4 though. For more than 4 years, the HARP spectrograph attached to the ESO telescope in Chile, they were finding groundbreaking discoveries for 4 years straight. Astronomers found the lightest exoplanet so far to this day. The lightest planet, that's crazy. This one is quite small compared to others on this list. GLIESE 581e is only twice the mass of our Earth, whereas the planet furthest out, GLIESE 581d, orbits its star every 67 days. While GLIESE 581e completes its orbit every 3 days. You know what I mean? Yeah, having a birthday every 3 days? Oh, what a nightmare that would be. I'm never going to this planet. This one can stay off our radar. Little small GLIESE, little GLIESE. Number 7, carbon on Mars. It's one thing to have Elon Musk tweeting about going to Mars or whatever he's doing over there, buying Twitter, I guess. But when NASA talks about it, I get a weird feeling, you know? It's NASA, you know? They're old school. They're like, we may have found carbon 40 years ago. Yeah. That's just it. That's the tweet. In 2022, just back in January, NASA's Curiosity rover measured carbon signatures on Mars. This is huge. Paul Mahaffey, principal investigator of the sample analysis at Mars, he says, quote, "We're finding things on Mars that are tantalizingly interesting, but we would really need to get more evidence to say that we've identified life." End quote. Okay, so we're close. It sounds like we're a little close. I don't know. Side note, imagine going on a Willy Wonka trip to Mars with Elon. Do we want to go? Like, he's announcing all these trips to Mars. I don't want to do that. I can't even drive to Ottawa for 4 hours, let alone Mars for years. No way. I'm homesick already. Number 6, Ryan Graves' UFO sightings. I mentioned this a little bit back in part 1, but I of course have to add more. Back in 2017, a $22 million defense program was put in place. It was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now its purpose was to study military encounters with UFOs. And at this point, Navy pilots were coming out with their own story. Their eyewitness account of seeing a UAP, or a UFO if you're old school. Eventually, come 2019, senators felt the need to be briefed on these sightings. It was that serious. After a vote by the Senate Intelligence Committee in June 2020, it was agreed that UAP reports were now to get added to the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2021 and going forward. That's crazy. That's why more and more footage is coming out now every other week, you know what I mean? These incidents were filmed ages ago, but only now are they being released. It's kind of cool. According to the Times, 120 incidents were studied during this case, and it turns out the US military is not responsible for any of the 120. If they happen to be advanced drones sent to spy on the military, it's kind of important to find out who sent them, know what I mean? And recently, a former Navy pilot, Ryan Graves, he spoke out to 60 Minutes, and he explained that these UAPs would pop up during training exercises every day for at least a couple of years. He says, and I quote, "If these were tactical jets from another country that were hanging out up there, it would be a massive issue. But because it looks slightly different, we're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're happy to just ignore the fact that these are out there watching us train every day." That's a quote from Ryan Graves. real pilot. And these are goosebumps for me. Awesome, I'm terrified. Are aliens real? What are we doing, man? Like, let's move on before I faint. My gosh. Number 5, Milky Way radio burst. On April 28th, 2020, 2 radio telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves, and they only lasted just a millisecond, but they left astronomers baffled. The reason for this is because this was the first time a fast radio burst had been detected this close to Earth. This signal was located only 30,000 light years from Earth, which places it in our Milky Way galaxy. That's pretty damn close. The Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment, or again, CHIME if you want to save breath, they explained that the signal was so easy to pick up that CHIME wasn't even looking its direction and it still noticed the signal. It was loud and clear right in their peripheral vision. And another telescope, STARE 2, also saw it clear as day. Well, it looks like whatever the cause for the signal, someone or something, we saw it. So now what? We found you. You can come out now. Number 4, the LORIMER burst. This is a fast radio burst that was detected long ago. This was back in 2007, and it was named, of course, after the person who spotted it, Duncan Lorimer. Well, actually, it was discovered when Duncan assigned his student, David Narkovec, to look through archival data taken in 2001 by the Parkes radio dish in Australia. That's when they noticed. After analyzing this data, it was found that there was a dispersed burst that occurred on July 24th, 2001. This burst was less than 5 milliseconds long, and it was located just 3 degrees from the small Magellanic Cloud. It still isn't quite clear what caused said signal, but it's thought that perhaps it may have been a singular event, such as a supernova, or an Avengers level threat. One of the two. Number 3, light shifts. Back in 2015, a Penn State astronomer named Jason Wright explained that there were pretty erratic and spontaneous shifts in the light that was coming from a star that was newly discovered. Yeah, shifts in light. What's that about? This star sits about 1,280 light years away from Earth, and these shifts were very similar, as if something was passing in front of our view of the star. Scientists weren't able to connect this to any exoplanets or meteors or anything like that, so in turn, Jason whipped up an interesting theory that's lived rent-free in my head ever since. He stated that it's possible that the shifts are caused by massive objects passing in front of the star in a slow orbit, like an array of massive satellites or a structure, like the type of thing that would be produced by an intelligent and civilized life form. Or maybe it's an asteroid. One of the two. Either way, I'm scared. Again. Number 2, Mount Rainier. Not to be confused with Mount Chiliad, although there's definitely aliens there as well. Mount Rainier in Washington was bumping and buzzing back in 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold made the first modern report of a flying saucer, or a UAP. Apparently it was a flying egg, actually, that's what it looked like. Kenneth saw 9 circular-shaped objects flying in formation. The classic formation, and they were flying at twice the speed of sound. So the Idaho pilot told the Air Force, and they laughed it off. They didn't believe him at all. He took this claim to his grave. Kenneth stood by what he saw until his death later in 1984. He said that he saw UAPs. He reached out to the Seattle Times in 1977, long before the movie Signs was made, and he said, "I made my report because I thought it was my duty. It was the only proper and American thing to do. I saw what I saw." End quote. And also end point. I'm, again, terrified. And finally, number 1. The lights. Okay, imagine you're driving home one night after a long shift at work. Maybe you worked late and it's midnight. You're driving and you see a V formation, the classic formation, in the sky made up of yellow and orange lights. Do you pull over? Do you assume you're just, beyond exhausted and maybe this is all in your head? Because that's what I would do. Back in 2001, on July 14th, drivers along the New Jersey Turnpike saw just that. It was a touch after midnight and cars legit pulled over and people got out to get a better look at what was in the sky. Everybody looked at this thing for around 15 minutes. It was just hovering over top of the Arthur Kill waterway right between Staten Island and New Jersey. Just floating there, just doing alien stuff. One eyewitness, Joe Mavasio, recalls the sighting as one of the most amazing things he had ever seen. And then just like that, the lights vanished. They faded out one by one in typical alien fashion. Daniel Tarrant of the Carteret Police Department recalls seeing this with his own eyes as well. It was 16 golden covered lights in a V formation. Aliens are fun and all, but keep your eyes on the roads, my friends, I'm not looking at anything. Aliens or not, 10 and 2, we're getting home. That's it. Seatbelts, I'm checking those mirrors. No aliens back there, we're good.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have interstellar medium. If you're into space news, you'll know that the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2 are two spacecrafts that have breached the edge of our solar system and have traveled further than any other man-made object before. This is important because it's given us insights we've never even had access to before, and that is exactly where this deep space discovery comes from. For a long time we weren't exactly sure what was outside of our solar system, but we assumed it must be a dark, cold place outside of the embrace of our sun, but we now know that that is far from true. Beyond the boundaries of our solar system, there is a region that is full of invisible but chaotic activity. Experts have described it like the plunge pool under Niagara Falls, but instead of tumbling water, this region is chaotic because of solar wind. This area of space is said to be millions of kilometers thick, and it covers billions of square kilometers around the surface of our heliosphere. Michelle Bannister, who is an astronomer at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand, explained this area and the solar winds as a constant, powerful stream of charged particles or plasma spraying out in every direction from the sun as it crashes into a cocktail of gas, dust, and cosmic rays that blows between star systems, known as interstellar medium. Because of our comfy place in the solar system and the heliosphere that surrounds us, we are protected from this space storm happening just outside of our bubble. In our number 9 spot today, we have a whirlpool galaxy planet. Just a few months ago, it was announced that astronomers may have found a planet in a star system outside of the Milky Way, and if this is the case, it would be the first ever found in another galaxy. This planet was discovered in a spiral galaxy that is called Messier 51, but its nickname is the Whirlpool Galaxy. I like the Milky Way a lot, but that nickname has me super intrigued. But this galaxy is located a cool 23 million light years away from Earth, so I think just hearing about it will probably have to do. The first planets that lie outside of our solar system, also called exoplanets, were found in the 1990s, and while we found thousands more, this is the first time we found a planet in another galaxy, and it will be the furthest alien planet ever identified, like by thousands of times. This planet was found in what is called an X-ray binary system, which is a type of star system. As their name implies, these star systems produce and emit X-rays, and they usually are made up of a normal star and a collapsed star, like a black hole or what is known as a neutron star. So usually when astronomers are trying to find a new planet, they use what is called the transit method. Transit is when a planet orbits in front of its parent star, and for us, it causes an observable change in the light of the star. So the experts who found this new planet used this same method, but instead of optical light, they used X-ray light. In our number 8 spot today, we have radio bursts. We get a lot of radio signals from space. Some are more exciting and mysterious than others, and it's not uncommon for some of the most mysterious ones to repeat, but for the very first time just last year, researchers noticed a pattern in a series of bursts that are coming from one single source. Oh, and it just so happens that this source is 500 million light years from Earth. Fast radio bursts are super short, like millisecond long bursts of radio waves in space, and usually when they repeat, it tends to be sort of sporadic or all in a cluster. That is exactly why this discovery that was made by researchers at the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment and Fast Radio Burst Project collaboration was so strange and exciting. For a period between September 16th, 2018 and October 30th, 2019, they observed these radio bursts and noticed a pattern that repeated every 6.35 days. For 4 days, the signal would release a burst or two each hour, and then it would go silent for 12 days before repeating the process. Now the focus has turned to trying to find out what is on the other end of these signals and where they are coming from. What do you think? In our number 7 spot today, we have a white dwarf. Okay, so for this discovery, we all have to be on the same page with white dwarfs. These things are a stellar core remnant that are made up of mostly electron degenerate matter. These things are dense. They have a mass close to that of the sun, but their volume is similar to that of Earth. Basically, white dwarfs are in the final stage of a star, or the final evolutionary stage of a star whose mass is not quite high enough to become a neutron star or a black hole. This is what will one day happen to our sweet sun as well, since it's really not that large of a star. So now that we all get what a white dwarf is, we have discovered one, and it is known to be the fastest spinning white dwarf we have ever found. This star was located in the binary system LAMOST J02401952, yeah, that was its short name, and the star completes a full rotation every 24.93 seconds. While it's taking us 24 hours, this thing is taking 24 seconds. That sounds like the worst ride at the fair. Scream if you want to go faster. In our number 6 spot today we have more radio bursts. Remember when I said that radio bursts happen often in space? Yeah, well here we are talking about another one. I swear I wasn't lying. Researchers like Dr. Benjamin Pope at the University of Queensland, along with colleagues from the Dutch National Observatory ASTRON, have been using the world's most powerful telescope to search for new planets. This has led to the detection of stars that are unexpectedly blasting out radio waves, which has now led researchers to believe that this may be due to the existence of hidden planets. We know that planets in our own solar system emit powerful radio waves, which is what happens when their magnetic fields interact with solar winds, but we had yet to pick up radio signals from planets outside of our solar system, which is what makes this discovery so exciting. Dr. Joseph Callingham at Leiden University and Astron, who is also the lead author of this discovery, said that the team is confident these signals are coming from the magnetic connection of the stars and unseen orbiting planets, similar to the interaction between Jupiter and its moon Io. In our number 5 spot today we have a black hole. You would think with how terrifying black holes are we'd know a lot about them, or that they'd at least be easy to identify, but it turns out that neither of those things are true. That is certainly a frightening thought, but that is also what made this little discovery an exciting one. Just a few weeks ago, astronomers discovered a small black hole just outside of the Milky Way, and it is hiding in a little star cluster. This discovery was made by looking at how this black hole was influencing the motion of the star that is closest to it, and that made it the first time this sort of method was used to detect a black hole outside of our galaxy. This is a very valuable discovery because it means that this method could potentially be used to help discover black holes that exist in other galaxies, which could then help shed light onto how these mysterious things form and evolve. In our number 4 spot today we have Martian meteorites. Okay, so this is a discovery that comes from our solar system, and it does involve Earth and Mars. It might not be the farthest out space discovery, but for reference, the closest that Earth and Mars could possibly be, which has never happened, it's just theoretical, is 54.6 million kilometers away from each other. But in that same breath, the furthest they can be from each other is 401 million kilometers. So it's safe to say we certainly aren't close. Over the past 20 million years or so, there's been about 166 Martian rocks that have landed on Earth, but for all of this time, their exact origins were unknown. That was until recently when researchers were able to determine the most likely origin of these meteorites using a machine learning algorithm that analyzes high-resolution planetary images. This research showed that these meteorites that landed on Earth likely originated from the Tooting crater on Mars, which is located in the Tharsis region, the largest volcanic province in the entire solar system. This discovery is groundbreaking because it comes 10 years before the Perseverance rover is set to send back samples of the Martian soil. There is a lot that went into exactly how they made this discovery, and it includes going back in the history of the planet, which is absolutely fascinating. Unfortunately, I only have so much time here, so I can't fully explain it, but Science Daily has a fantastic article about it should you want to read up a little bit more on this incredible research project. In our number 3 spot today we have a baby planet. To us, our Earth may seem kind of old. I mean, it's been around for millions and millions of years and long before us, but in terms of space and the universe, it's really not too old of a planet. Earlier this year, however, scientists discovered one of the youngest planets to ever be found, and it is around a distant infant star. I don't know why, but talking about finding the youngest planet sounds like the cutest thing in the world to me. Thousands of planets have been discovered around other stars, but this one's age is what makes it so unique, and the fact that it can be directly observed. So far we believe that this planet is a few times larger than Jupiter, and it is believed that it formed with its star several several million years ago. I mean, our Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, so comparably, this guy's just a little youngster. Like, this planet was forming around the same time that the main Hawaiian Islands were first emerging from the ocean. Because this planet is so young, it is still very hot from the energy that was released during its formation. Like, it's sitting at about the temperature of lava erupting from a volcano, so it's just a little too hot for comfort. In our number 2 spot today, we have galactic recoil. There is another galaxy out there that we call the Andromeda Galaxy, and within it we have found this strangely shaped cluster of stars that has been stumping researchers for quite a while, but we think we may have found an answer as to why. This mystery has been around for decades, and this new research might help researchers to better understand how galaxies grow by feeding on each other. Basically, every galaxy has a supermassive black hole at their core. I know, it's kind of terrifying, but it's just the way it is, and there really isn't anything we can do about it. So this new study is showing that when two galaxies collide, which yes, also unfortunately happens, the supermassive black holes and their cores then release a huge, devastating, powerful kickback, like the recoil from a shotgun kind of a situation. This new study and research is now showing and suggesting that this kickback may be so strong that it can knock millions of stars into different wonky, strange orbits, and this might be the answer as to why the star cluster behaves so strangely. Basically, the collision and the waves won't affect the stars in the galaxy directly, but the recoil is going to throw the remaining supermassive black hole through space. And when I say throw, I'm talking about traveling at millions of miles per hour. We also have to remember that supermassive black holes have a mass that can be millions and even billions times that of the sun. This means that this kickback could be powerful enough for them to entirely escape the galaxy, and if they don't, they may pull the orbits of the stars around them, thus creating this wonky situation we've been wondering about. Of course, this is the most basic way of explaining it because an expert I am not, but it is truly such a fascinating concept. In our number 1 spot today, we have dead galaxies. It is said that the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. When it was just a youngster at only 3 billion years old, it was going through an extremely important period in its development, and this was the most prolific period of star birth in its entire history. New research from NASA using the Hubble Space Telescope, along with the Atacam Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array in northern Chile, they gazed towards the cosmic objects in this period, and that is when they found something they hadn't seen before. 6 different quote dead galaxies. By this I mean that they had run out of the cold hydrogen needed to make stars, and without the fuel for stars, these galaxies were basically just running on empty. At this point in our universe, all the galaxies should have been forming tons of stars. I mean, ours certainly was, as can be seen by a glance towards the night sky, especially in areas that aren't clouded by light pollution. This discovery is absolutely fascinating, but it's led us to new questions we didn't even know we had before. What led these galaxies to this point? What happened to all of the cold gas in them so early on? These 6 galaxies lived fast, hot lives, but we aren't sure what went wrong. Lead author and assistant professor of astronomy at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Kate Whitaker, proposed several potential explanations and gave us insight into the future of the studies when she said, quote, "Did a supermassive black hole in the galaxy's center turn on and heat up all the gas? If so, the gas could still be there, but now it's hot. Or it could have been expelled and now it's being prevented from accreting back into the galaxy. Or did the galaxy just use it all up and the supply is cut off?" These are some of the open questions that we'll continue to explore with new observations down the road.